A Spanish acquaintance, told me that she was touched on the train. And after all this mess, the police told her to show them her breasts when she claimed someone had touched them.
What?
Yes, the police.
It is speculated that only about 10% of sexual harassment cases on trains are reported to the police. And of that 10%, only 30% are officially recognized as harassment cases. Which means that every year, there are 4,000 recorded cases of harassment on public transportation. If we do the math, the minimum number of annual cases should actually be 120,000. I'm Naka, this is Japatonic Life, and today we're going to talk about what chikan is. How is case opened? First, the person must file a complaint. Then, the harasser must be identified. Finally, the person must receive a punishment. With that, the case can be closed. And that's how a harassment case can be recorded. And there are about 4,000 of these per year. But, as I was saying, only 30% of the cases are closed, and only 10%. 1 out of every 10 girls reports it to the police. By the way, the word chikan means sexual harasser. But it is most commonly referred to as harassment on the train, right? Those are the most common cases. That's what most of the cases are. Let's talk about the causes. According to researchers, one of the main reasons why many people commit chikan is blaming the porn industry. Because let's get to the point. There are many adult movies where the context of the story is set inside trains or buses, where this scene is specifically based on what is a chikan situation. Let's get to the point. These cases are fictional. But this is kind of like an incentive, according to professionals, for people to do these things. Then, another problem is that the trains in Tokyo are very crowded. But sometimes there are also many cases, even though most of them happen during rush hour and on crowded trains. But there are also many cases of trains that aren't that crowded. Then, the lack of romantic relationships. Well, I've already made videos about all these issues of love, the problems Japanese people have with love or relationships. And the last one is the lack of women raising their voices. The thing is, of course, reporting these cases is socially seen as making a big fuss over something small. And sometimes girls don't want to make a big scene or cause a fuss out of embarrassment. And the other thing is that the process is very embarrassing. When someone files a report, the police officer who takes the report is going to ask in detail, how did he touch you? With which hand did he touch you? Where did he touch you? With which finger? How? You have to say precisely how it happened verbally, in your own words, to write down every detail. How was the harassment that you experienced? Otherwise, they can't report this case. And sometimes the police officer you get might be a man. They won't necessarily call a woman to take your report. And that's what makes it so complicated for girls to be able to freely make this kind of report.
A friend of mine, a Spanish acquaintance, told me that someone touched her on the train. Well, after all this mess, the police told her to show her breasts when she claimed someone had touched them.
What?
The police? Yes, to a Spanish woman.
What do you mean, show them?
To show her breasts.
Why?
To show him how they touched her, and she had to show her breasts. Like, at that level?
But show her breast, like without clothes or what?
Of course, I mean to show how they touched her breast. And she said, but was it on the train? Yes, like the police will go that far.
And another important reason why many girls don't want to report it is that actually filing a report takes time, and they're going to be late. Wherever they're heading to on the train, precisely because they're on the move. There's something called Chikan Opportunity Day. It turns out it's public knowledge that there are certain dates when college entrance exams are held nationwide. Exam dates are sometimes in February or March, but you end up knowing them. And the fact is, at that time, the girls who are going to take the college entrance exam that day can't be late. Therefore, the people who are really into this topic know about it and take advantage of it, and they go and attack with everything that day because they know the girls can't be late. And it's called the Day of Chicken, the Day of Opportunity. Chikans sometimes reach that level of organization. There was a recent case of a trans girl who got on the train on the day of the exams. She got on at the time when all the students travel to take the entrance exam, dressed as a schoolgirl, to prevent other girls from being targeted that day. The fact is, she took the test, she got on the train. According to her statements, she was traumatized because she said she felt really disgusted, because she felt how she was groped and how she felt the horrible breath of an older person on the back of her neck. And she said that the next day, since it was also exam day, between Saturday and Sunday, she said she was kind of traumatized and said she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it again. But the fact is that a person who simply dressed up as a schoolgirl took the test and it happened to her. And the case of this guy became quite viral. In 1988, in the city of Osaka, there was a case of a girl who was being harassed by 2 men and 1 person. A third person got involved because he was seeing what was happening and wanted to try to stop the other 2 people. The fact is that these 2 people took this guy who was trying to defend the girl off the train. And it all ended up in a case of rape on the train. And since this happened, that's when it started. The women-only train cars. So the women-only train cars have been around for quite a few years now. The fact is, the women-only train cars are not on every train line. They're on the busiest lines and only during certain hours. Normally, you arrive at the station, at the platform, and it's marked on the floor and on the train car. The women-only train cars usually say they're for a certain route, from one stop to another, at a certain time, which is usually from 7 in the morning until 9, since everyone starts work at 9, usually the rush hour ends at 9. But the thing about the women-only cars is that they're not always available, and they're not on every train, and not for the entire route. Well, some of you may already know that in Japan, no matter how much you put your phone on silent mode, you can't turn off the camera sound. It always makes a noise. And the reason they do this in Japan is specifically because of the issue of chikan. Because there are a lot of people who, for example, on the train, go and take photos under girls' skirts. And that's something very common in Japan. And of course, with the arrival of smartphones, since you always have your phone at hand. Of course, the chikan will always have easy access, a good opportunity, and be able to take photos of whatever they want. And well, many of you may have seen a video that went ultra-viral of a person who had clearly committed chikan on the platform of the station. The guy was running away, and a man stuck out his foot to trip him. And he was being chased by 2 girls. Middle school students, about 12 or 13 years old, in uniform. They were running. The girls shouted "chikan, chikan," which is why the other guy put his foot out. There are many cases of people who are caught doing this and then run away. There have been instances of people escaping by running along train tracks. I mean, where do they expect to end up like that? Of course, it's a moment of desperation. But there have been cases, for example, of people escaping from Shibuya Station and ending up jumping off a bridge and getting injured because they wanted to escape. Honestly, there are some ridiculous situations sometimes. The thing is that, on the other hand, if the case is properly documented, the report and everything, the police also start to, as far as I know, they start calling your family members in your workplace to inform them that you committed that crime. And this is also done intentionally so that, well, first, so that people don't do it, so they don't risk doing those things. And they know that if they commit such a crime, they will be embarrassed in front of the company and their family. This is not confirmed, but upon my arrival in Japan, I recall hearing about this. I heard that if you grope a girl at the station, they will call your workplace, your family. They'll call everyone. And of course, if you commit this kind of crime, the punishment can be from 6 months to 2 years in prison. It mostly depends on whether you were touching her clothes or touching her skin. But the fact is that there are also cases of false accusations by women. Sometimes they target someone who looks like they have money and try to get something out of them. The fact is that legally a monetary settlement can be reached so the case doesn't go to trial. There have been cases of women who wanted to take advantage of these situations. But nowadays you can go to trial where studies are conducted, where if there are traces of skin on the girl's clothing, so if the individual is well informed and knows they are not guilty of anything, then the study can proceed. So he doesn't go to jail, lose money, or have his dignity taken away. The fact is that this type of study also started being done because there was a case of a person who was falsely accused. And well, this young man who went through this was left in a very bad state. He fell into a deep depression, which even led him to suicide. Because this kind of accusation can ruin your life. If they do it right, you can have a really hard time. They can truly ruin your life. Your family might turn their back on you and you might struggle to find employment. In the most extreme cases, people have even taken their own lives due to false accusations. Such cases do exist. The prevention advice given by the government or railway companies is completely ridiculous. I mean, avoiding taking the train during rush hours when it's really crowded doesn't make sense, or avoiding certain corners of the train, which also doesn't really make sense. But let's say that among the things that worked best, for example, especially with schoolgirls, because the ones who suffer the most harassment are schoolgirls. It's wearing anti-chikan pins, which are pins about this size, that say, for example, if you touch me, I'll call the police. I don't let chikan go unnoticed. And well, they say it has a 94% effectiveness rate, which is quite a lot. But of course, not all girls want to wear the pin either, because maybe it's not that cool to wear those pins, or because they might feel a bit embarrassed to wear them. Because the pin is basically saying it. It talks about a personal problem the girl has, so not all of them wear it. So, well, this was a video where we talked about one of the biggest problems in Japan. It's a sad reality that happens. See you next time. Greetings to you, your family, your pet, and your jerk neighbor.